So welcome aboard, everyone, and those of you who are here in live, and I know that a bunch of you are going to be watching the replay, so welcome to you as well. And so frankly, I must admit that both me and Akanksha were really surprised at the number of people who signed up for this introductory session. We weren't expecting. So if you've noticed, we had a jot forms earlier and it ran out of capacity because it had a limit of 100 and we had to start a Google Forms. So I'm very thrilled that this is a topic that is so much of interest. So welcome aboard. And this is how we've decided to structure this 1 hour. So first of all, so thanks to all of you who gave the questions. And that was also overwhelming because in your forms, you've submitted questions and they're beautiful questions. I personally wish I could answer each one of them, but I can't. So I'm going to sort of club them together. And in the first half an hour, I will give an introduction to the subject. And in that introduction, I'm going to be addressing a majority of questions, the dominant themes that came up. And the second half an hour will be Q&A right here. So if your question, which you submitted in the form, has not been addressed, bring it up then. And if you have anything else also that comes up in the course of this discussion, do bring it up. And just to manage the online dynamics, everybody is muted, or they're supposed to be. I just noticed for some reason, some people are not muted, but we'll try our best to keep everyone muted. So you can use the chat window, and depending on the number of questions, most likely I think we'll just have Akanksha read out your questions on behalf of you and we can answer it and we can take it on the floor there, okay? So, so a short introduction to myself. I think most of you know something about me, which is why you are on the session. But for those who don't, actually, I'm not going to introduce myself. I'm just going to introduce why this subject is something that I'm very interested in. So the idea, the relationship between human beings and work is something that I started studying and looking at solely for helping myself. So I was miserable in the first few jobs that I entered, and you've heard of Monday morning blues, the feeling, but I was feeling it all the time. And I was like, why do I need to work? Why am I working? And it was literally a sort of a crisis in my head that led me to study this subject. And after, trying out a couple of jobs and not being happy in any of them, I actually went on to do a PhD in organizational behavior, because that is the study of human behavior at work. And I was also exploring the same question in parallel in philosophy, in a whole bunch of other streams. But I distinctly remember the first day of the first class in my PhD program at London Business School. Okay, so I was the only Indian there, and we were going around the table. Everyone was introducing themselves. So my introduction went like this: Hi, I'm Ramya. I'm from India, and I'm here to study the person-work relationship. And I remember the professor went at me like this. He was looking. He's like, "Wow, you got your life purpose there already." and I was wondering, is he joking? Is he teasing me? But that's why I've come here. And that's why I've come all this way. But, fast forward many years, I think it does feel a bit like my life purpose. Although at that time, I wanted to understand it and I was studying it just for myself. And now it's turned into something that I can continue discovering and help other people discover their own relationships with work, and not just discover it, but actually craft it and create it in a way that it becomes an enriching relationship. So yes, I am here to facilitate each one of your relationships with your own work. And frankly, that is what we call a career, okay? So career and work, at the end of the day, they're just labels, they're just work, they're just words, and we're going to demystify some of that here, okay? So, so I'm going to talk about a few myths that we have related to career, and then look at it, and then, look at why we're even looking at redesigning. So first of all, so what do you mean by redesigning career? What do you mean by designing your career or designing your life or crafting your life, okay? So a lot of you who've spent large a large number of years in the same organization would know that most organizations typically have their own version of a career path, a career ladder. They chart it out for you. You enter, and then you say, okay, I'll just follow that path that's been carved out within that organization. That's what I call a ready-made career path. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. My father followed a path like that. He spent his entire time in Tata Steel. And it can be a beautiful journey. It can be a journey that suits some people. It can be a journey that works very well for some people. Unfortunately, it doesn't work well for everybody, right? And very often I've found that, when it doesn't work well for us, and this is what happened to me as well, we start thinking there's something wrong with us because we don't fit into a certain trajectory, a certain path. And it's taken me a long time to realize this. I wish, because now it feels like common sense, but when you just keep beating yourself up, sometimes you don't realize that there's actually nothing wrong with any of us. It's just that ready-made career paths may not work for us. Why? Because each one of us is unique. And that's when some of us might prefer to chart our own careers, to create our own paths. They may not even be linear. They may be non-linear, like mine is very non-linear. They might be spiraling. They might have gaps. They might have gaps that are nurturing. They might have gaps that we need, gaps that we choose, gaps that we don't choose. And our career can be like our own beautiful design, something that we make. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And so this course and this idea is really for all those of us who, you know, we just don't want to take ourselves and fit ourselves into a box that someone else has designed and crafted. Again, nothing wrong with that. But what if you wanted to sort of create your own box and go into it? And if you don't like boxes and you don't want to go into a box, don't even think of it as a box, right? And I'm giving the analogy of a box as a role, right? You have a doctor, you have a consultant, you have an investment banker. Come to think of it, these professions or these boxes, they didn't even exist earlier. Some human beings created them, right? And gave them labels. And now a whole bunch of us are like, okay, which box do I fit into? Do I fit into this? What if you don't fit into any of them? You still have a right to exist. You still have a right to work. You still have a right to earn money, make a contribution, and have fun and do all the amazing things that you can with your work. And that is what is designing your own career. And if why we're looking at redesigning, because a lot of us have already been in one or more careers, and we can just shake things up, change them completely, tweak them around a bit, redesign it to the extent you want to at this stage in life. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to sort of also talk about a few myths. And when I say myths, so it's not like everyone on this call or everyone listening to this recording would have subscribed to each of these, but these are just very, very common myths that I've come across in my, I think, around 20 years of work now on careers. Okay. So the first myth is that there's an ideal job for me sitting there waiting somewhere. There's a calling, there's that perfect ideal job. I can't tell you the number of times I have students or even sometimes, mid-career people coming, but I haven't found my calling. I haven't found that ideal job for me. It's almost a bit like, when we were teenagers, we thought there's a Prince Charming waiting for us somewhere and we just had to find him, or a Princess Charming somewhere. And our life's purpose was to find that person, that soulmate. Like that, there's this ideal job and I just need to find it. What if there isn't any such ideal job? Maybe it's there for some people. Maybe for some people, there's something that's out there and they just find it and great. But for the majority of us, at least, one of our career was not something to find, but rather a journey of unfolding that we travel, that we create. Now, not something laid out to us from the outside, but a path that we make and create and enjoy and experience and contribute during that journey. And it keeps evolving. Okay. So if you've been thinking of, I don't know what my ideal job is, my invitation to you is to drop that notion. What if you didn't have to search for something? What if you had to create your path? And that path, that journey is what we're going to call your career. You could call it anything, alpha, beta, gamma. We just call it career in this world, right? Okay. This, sorry. The second common myth is that, success and failure are absolutes. Now I know a lot of you are old enough to know that they're not. Like, when you were in school, your teacher decided somehow that if you get above 40 marks in a subject, it's success or whatever. Above 90 success, above below 40 is failure, and the rest is in between. These are just labels. And we live our life through these labels of success and failures, but they don't exist in nature. They're man-made creations. And I'm not going to make this into a huge rhetoric about success and failure, although I could, because it's one of my favorite topics. But I'll just say, in the context of careers, this is what I've found in my own journey, as well as the journey of lots of others that I've seen, witnessed, or coached. Okay. You might think that something's a failure. 5 years down the line, this is what you draw on as the opportunity. This is what you can milk to actually make the next thing happen. And sometimes you might think that something's a success. And once you're there, you're like, oh my God, this is the biggest trap of prison I've just put myself into. You get this amazing promotion, you think it's a success. And then you're like, gosh, now I have to manage people instead of do that lovely analysis that was used to really turn me on. Where have I come? Okay. So in your careers, in our careers, in the world of work and career, success is not always success. Failure is not always failure. So my invitation to you while designing your career again is, see it as a journey of experiences. Some of these experiences will go the way you intend them to go or want them to go, and therefore you'll think of it as a success, which is fine, but don't make it too significant. Some experiences and some outcomes will not go the way you intended to or the way you wanted to, and therefore you will think of it as failure, and people around you will say, oh, no, you failed. I'm feeling so sorry for you. Take all the sympathy if you want, but don't make it too significant, because believe me, sooner or later you'll realize that success wasn't really only success and failure wasn't only failure. And if you start becoming resourceful and actively designing your career, you can be smart and creative enough to turn around that failure and make it your resource, right? You can actually turn that failure into your selling point in your CV, and actually, or CV or job or whatever, and actually make it one of the strong pillars of your career. I mean, I've done that again and again and again. Okay. So yeah, so don't take these as absolutes. Third myth. Okay, so the third myth is very, very widely prevalent, okay, in the realm of work and careers, is that think of these three things. One is performance, and performance includes financial performance, right? Which is your income, how much money you're making out of it, or how much you're getting paid. The second part or corner of the triangle is enjoying, how much you're enjoying the work that you do. And this can also be how meaningful do you find it? How much fun is it? Do you enjoy the people you work with? Do you feel like, you're making a contribution and therefore feeling good about it? So all your feelings related to the enjoyment part, okay? And the third part of the triangle is learning. What you're learning. Again, what you're learning about yourself, what you're learning about the people you work with, what you're learning about the industry, what you're learning about that particular, technology or domain that you're working in, or what you're learning about the world and existence in general. Okay, so there's learning at different levels. Now, I keep coming across people who think that there's a trade-off between these three. They're like, should I go for something that I love, or should I go for something that gives me money? Should I go for something where I'm really learning and upping my skills? Or should I go for something where, I'm just achieving and having a high performance? If you start putting these in a triangle, and you can look here, and I've done a lot of research on this, by the way, you have to believe me here, but again, I could explain this in more detail at any other place, but these three are not standalone, they are interrelated. And if you are to see the research in organizational behavior in the space of careers, what you'll see is that your enjoyment is actually increases your chances of performance or success, which of course increases your chances of financial success as well. Enjoyment or being happier at work increases our propensity to learn. It increases how much we learn. There's something called broaden and build theory, which actually changes your brain and it turns on the learning centers in your brain. And again, if you're learning, if you're focusing on learning, it helps in your performance. sometimes in the short run, definitely in the long run. And again, if we're learning things about ourselves, about the world, we feel good about ourselves. So it helps in enjoyment. So they're all closely connected. So the third myth that we absolutely have to bust is that there's a trade-off between these three and we have to do some kind of a compromise. You might need to do some kinds of minor in the short run, like, I'm not saying you can always have it all, but please don't assume that it's always a trade-off either. In fact, in my own experience, 19 to 95% of the time it's not a trade-off. When you invest in one, it actually helps you in the other two domains. So it's like this win-win interrelationship that you can start creating for yourself. Okay. So that's the third myth I wanted to bust. And the fourth myth is really about having multiple careers and assuming that that's the same as multitasking. Now, multitasking is not good for us. There's a bunch of research, and we know that, right? Anyone who has 5 windows open on your computer and you're like, oh, you know that this is not good for your brain. But having multiple careers is not actually the same as multitasking. Having multiple careers, or what in the career literature is known as slash careers, can actually, it may not be for everyone, but for some people, it might be a huge gift. So what's a slash career? It's like, it's coming from, what do you put on your visiting card? Stand-up comedian slash teacher, okay? Or poet slash dancer, or professor slash consultant, okay? A whole bunch of things. And you can have a third one also. And, or chef slash financial analyst, okay? Now, how do, yeah, so okay, I'm not going to look at the comments chat windows now, but I will see them later. But I just saw that one, which is it good only when they're related to each other? Yes and no. Sometimes you don't have to look for direct relationships. So again, there have been studies done on people who have slash careers, and I'm also going to speak from my own experience here. You'll see that your friends or colleagues in one become your clients in the other. Okay, your network in one actually helps you get resources or funding in the other. So they may not be directly related, but they can be indirectly contributing to each other. And you'll be surprised how this actually does tend to happen. And even if it doesn't, they cater to different aspects of yourself, which means, if you spend a couple of days doing theater and moving your body around and you're feeling really good, and you get, for the next couple of days, you're actually okay. And your body is okay if you sit at a desk and do your, I don't know, investment banking. But if you're sitting at your desk 24/7 and trading those stocks, your body is like, I want to move. Where's my space, right? So there's some things that you do that, really caters to the intellect, and some things that you do that really allows you to move, to interact with people, that, caters to your body. And all of us have multiple interests. We're multidimensional people. And that's, again, the thing about taking, these multidimensional people that we are, beings wonderfully talented with lots of interests, trying to squeeze ourselves into one box. What then happens is that we have to sort of kill off all these other interests and part of ourselves. And then we don't really feel good about ourselves, because why would you feel good about yourself when you're trying to desperately kill off parts of yourself that are like, that sort of want to be lived, right? And again, you could earn income from both. You could earn income from one that sort of supports the other. You could earn income from one and sponsor yourself in the other if you want, right? You could also play with the whole financial aspect of this in very creative ways. So that is the other aspect that you can definitely bring in when you design and redesign your own career. Okay, so these were 4 main myths that I wanted to look at, and a couple of more, sort of just add-ons that I wanted to throw, which we need to sort of, look at or pay attention to while designing our careers. One is the role of stakeholders in our lives. So there's Supriya's here on the call, and Supriya and I have actually created, she's waving there, so we created a theater-based activity when, Supriya was a PhD student at IIM Bangalore when I was teaching, and I'm still teaching, but she TA'd for my course, Personal Values, Goals, and Career Options, multiple times, and she also took it, and she wrote this beautiful case that we used as a theater activity for students to actually bring out and sort of bring to their mind and sort of recognize all the stakeholders. And what do we mean by stakeholders, right? So if I think that my career is just here to serve me, not so true, right? So depending on what I do and what I choose, my son has a stake in it, my husband has a stake, my parents have a stake. There are lots of other people who can be stakeholders in my career. And of course, some of these stakeholders are real stakeholders. What, Supriya and I would bring out through the theater activity and look at is also stakeholders who we hold in our head, almost like cops or policemen in our head from our childhood, right? Where people have told us this is good, this is bad, do this, do that, don't do this. And all these voices of judgment, those people might have actually died and left the planet and gone, but those voices are still there. And that way, we are still like puppets sort of playing to all those voices and trying to fulfill all of that in the way we live our lives and in choosing our and designing our work. So again, sort of, bringing to awareness the role of all these stakeholders, the living ones around us, as well as the ones which are just the voices and values in our heads. And of course, nowadays there's Facebook and LinkedIn. Those are also, social media can be a huge stakeholder for some of us. Sort of really becoming present and aware of the role of these stakeholders and then choosing consciously. The idea is not that you want to take a sword and cut off everything and say, no, I'll just do what I want. Some of you might choose to do that, and some of you might choose to say, no, okay, fine, I want to be aware of these roles of stakeholders, and you decide which ones you want to include and how much in the design of your career. Okay, so yeah, that was about it. And the last part of this before we open up to questions, and so which is, how are we going to do this? So a lot of questions that you guys sent in, especially in the form that you filled, was, okay, how are we going to do this? So the how is very important. So how do you redesign a career? So according to me, there are these two parallel things that we do. One I'm going to call inner work, and one is outer work. Let's take inner work first. Inner work is really looking at our own beliefs and mental models and the stories and assumptions and all of that we buy into about work, about ourselves, about success, and questioning those, seeing if they're serving us, seeing if they're true, and changing it or letting it go. So for example, like I told you, and these myths that I brought up, some of them are there, right? So if you believe, for example, that you can't do something that's fun and make money, if that's your belief, you're not going to even let yourself spot opportunities that are fun and make money. Why? Because there's something called confirmation bias that operates in all of us who are human beings. And I guess that we're all humans here, which means once we hold a belief, our brain takes it upon itself to really try and keep showing to us and proving to us and only seeking out those kinds of data and evidence to us that will sort of tell us, you're right, your belief is right, your belief is right, right? That's called confirmation bias. So just by holding a belief that something that's fun cannot bring in money, just because of that belief, I'm actually really cutting down chances of spotting those opportunities, of picking up those opportunities, of engaging with those opportunities. Okay, so we're really going to look at the beliefs that come in the way of us designing a career that can actually sort of become our best friend and bring us alive. I'll give you another example from my own life, okay? And where do we create these mental models from? So a lot of it are scripts that we pick up from childhood and from conditioning, from schooling, education, society, all of that. So when I was a little girl growing up, my father used to work in Tata Steel. And when I was when I was really little, he used to work in the blast furnace. And if anyone's worked in a steel plant, when you work in the blast furnace, your clothes get covered with black soot and stuff like that, and you go at different hours, and it's an exhausting, physically tiring job. Also, so what I saw as a little girl was my father used to get up in the morning. He'll be all clean and nice and have a lovely bath, go to work, come back all suit and irritated and tired and then he had to, of course, have a bath and all of that. And kids are very resilient. So me and my sis learned that, okay, when daddy comes back, you don't approach him. He comes back like this monster. You don't approach him till he's back to normal. But what that really gave me in my head was that work or office, to be more precise, is a place that you go to and you sort of become tired and drained and dirty, and then you come back home and then you have to come back to life. And I didn't realize this, but I was playing this out in my early job. It was not a factory, it was a bank. But still, I would go all fresh and energetic and I would come back. I've come back from office. And I did this day after day, thinking that I'm going to office, right? Because now I'm feeling very good that I'm going to office and I'm playing the part perfectly, beautifully. And I've done hard work because I can show it how I feel by, how I'm coming back. And it was years later. In fact, this even carried on a little into my own teaching career, which I used to still enjoy, that after the class, I used to come back and say, I finished teaching now, I'll do Shavasana and relax. And then I was like, I challenged it, and I'm not making this up. I don't get tired when I teach nowadays. Physically, if it's a whole day workshop, yes, there might be, it's the same kind of physical tiredness that you feel when you play cricket or sports or something. That's a different tiredness than what I'm talking about, which is that whole training. In fact, if they're shorter things, I just get charged up more. So, and this is really important to catch, because as long as I was holding that definition of work adopted from my sweet papa, like papa, I want to go to work and then come back and say, good girl Ramya, today also I've drained my battery and come, I'm not even going to feel like I've done my justice, right? Same thing with hard work. I can't tell you, even today, the number of people who say, you know what, I need to feel like I'm tired and exhausted, then I feel like I'm justified and earned this money. No. What if getting tired had nothing to do with justifying the money that you bring in? What if people are willing to pay you for contributing to them? Whether you get tired or not is out of the equation. That's not what you're billing your boss or your client or anybody else. You're not billing them for getting tired and stressed and strained. You're billing them for the what you contribute to them. So we have a lot of these weird associations that we pick up, that when we start disentangling them, we give ourselves the freedom and space to really create a career that works. So that's inner work. And what's outer work? Outer work is what you hear about all the time, which is going out, talking to people, networking, prototyping, making those phone calls, getting yourself out there, putting yourself through the experiences that really scare you and doing it so that you get used to it. And inner work is great, but inner work combined with outer work is what really gives results. So you see, so I make a lot of videos now, right? I do Facebook lives, and I'm doing the Zoom call now and all. When I made my first video course, it's still on YouTube. It's on the IMB YouTube channel. It's called Managing Stress. Okay. And you can check it out. So it's like 8 years old, and I'm wearing like this red kurta. And I remember when I was shooting it, I was so scared. It was so difficult for me. I kept, yes. And, and edX and Swayam actually came later. I was fine. This is on the IMB Kite channel. Okay. It's a 14-part video series on managing stress. I was taking toilet breaks every 10 or 15 minutes. And I'm sure, we had people come from outside to videograph, and they must have wondered, how often does she go to the toilet? Okay. I was just so scared. But I just did it. I did it. It was not comfortable. And that's how to work. Sometimes you just need to do things, right? To get comfortable. And that's what we look at outer work. So, that's the outer work that you need to do. Outer work also helps a lot in terms of, for example, I'll give another example from the previous batch of this course that we did. There's something called prototyping conversations in this, in the book that we'll be following, okay? What is that? So suppose you okay, and that comes a little later. It comes a little after the half point, where you've done a lot of inner work and finding your compass and direction and playing around with possible plans and ideation and all of that. You've done some divergent thinking and brainstorming. And then you start prototyping. Prototyping is what? You're testing your ideas, right? So you prototype these, either the whole career and you've designed almost 3 to 5 possible careers, okay? And you're prototyping each one of them. And some of them could be combinations also, like I told you. So they're designs. So there was this one participant, as part of her design, she wanted to open a bakery. So she had put that in one of her designs. So her prototyping conversation, even during COVID times, and she managed to do it, She managed to find somebody who actually owned and ran a bakery, and she went and she spoke to the person. So actually speaking to the person who runs the bakery, what's your day like? What do you do? What all do you do? What's your experience? And after she had that prototype interview, she came back and she said, you know what? I realized running a bakery is not what I thought it was. And it's out. And that's how it can help, because again, we might have these fantasies and might have these ideas, and unless you go out, and it doesn't have to be a conversation. And during COVID times, most people have only managed conversations, but during non-COVID times, you could also go and volunteer, right? You could intern. Oh, there was another person, and she couldn't do it because of COVID times, but again, she spoke to farmers, but she wanted a farm. But again, just by speaking, she got more insights. But you could actually go and volunteer at a farm if that's something you're thinking of. You don't have to do it. You don't have to sort of leave your job and leave your house and go get it and then figure it out. You can just start sampling, testing, seeing how it works for you. And that's part of the outer work. Okay, so going with the spirit of the half an hour that I promised, let's go into Q&A now. Okay, so Akanksha, are you here? I'm just going to unmute you and yeah. Oh, I think we muted each other. Wait. Yeah. Are you unmuted now? Yeah.
Yes, I am. Hi, everyone. So, this was very interesting. I myself have a lot of questions, but I won't jump in. I won't be greedy. And I'll use my power of this microphone like responsibly. So, guys, if you have any questions right now, please type it into the chat box. Otherwise, I have picked up a few questions that we had received in the forms. So, we'll start with that, Ramya, while everybody else
Yeah.
thinks and start typing.
Sounds good.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? Okay, I think Akanksha is frozen. So what I can do is I can start with a question. Oh, okay. Okay, there's a question on chat. I'll just pick that up. Okay, am I frozen or can you hear me? You can hear me, right? Okay, there's a question on chat on, are you offering any course on organizational field? No, not, I mean, it's a very big, wide subject. So no, not right now. I'm offering niche courses on smaller subjects. Audible, okay. Okay, so okay, I think while Akanksha comes back with the questions. Okay, so guys, you can chat. You can ask whatever you have to on the chat. Maybe I'll just also take you through what's planned as part of the course. Okay, yes. Okay, somebody else. Go of the course, crafting your lives. Crafting your life. Okay, so Leon. Okay. So this, and Arun wants to know duration of this program. So this is actually a 12-week program. So it starts next week. So same time, 8:30 in the evening. We meet for 12 weeks starting next week, and we'll be having live calls for 90 minutes every week. We'll be using this book. It's called Designing Your Life. as I won't say as a course textbook, but we'll be using it as a guide. And this really helps. I find it really helpful to have a book, especially because this is being done online. So, people can read one chapter a week. There are exercises, home plays. You'll also be divided into smaller groups, which will meet once during the week. So your smaller group decides on a time that works for everyone, shares notes, shares your reflections on the exercises. When we meet again on Friday, you can ask me any questions, insights on the, somebody asked audiobook version. I'll just answer that, right? You ask questions and Q&A, and just going by what happened the last time I offered this, which was really the first time I was offering it in this online format, our discussions actually went way beyond the book. And yet the book is extremely helpful because it's structured. If you miss, of course, there's a recording and you have it with you, because frankly, redesigning your career, it's not like starting on first week and it doesn't end for some. So for some people the journey sort of ended where, by end of 12 weeks they found a new job or they did something. But I see the design and redesign as an ongoing part of my life. So for example, I'm constantly designing and redesigning my own career. So again, having the book means, and that there is a sequence, but again, it's not a linear journey. So you can go back, forth, and you can keep doing things that you want. So yeah, I'll answer that. So then the other question on the audiobook, I would recommend getting the physical book again, because there are exercises and there are pictures, right? So it can really help to have that visual when you're doing the exercise. But yeah, if you have a preference for audiobook, go for it. But use A4 sheets and sort of, design your own exercises that way. Uh, the course on edX crafting realities is different. Yes, quite different, because the edX course on crafting realities, it's a little dated. So my own learning and experience has grown a lot since then, and it's theoretical. So all the theory in that edX course would still be like a foundation. But in this course, I'm not going to necessarily give you the theory unless somebody asks. I'm playing more of a role of a coach. So when I created the edX course, I was a professor. So far, I'd only been a professor in my life. So I so I made it wearing a professor hat. Since the last couple of years, or year, actually a year really, I've also started coaching, and I've been doing more and more of coaching, which is actually working hands on with people to helping them design. And I realized that's a different journey. So this is also a bit like group coaching, where I'm sort of, it's more practical and giving practical tips. Akanksha, you're back. You're dropped off. So I was just answering the questions on the chat. So do you want to take over, or do you want to look at the chat? I need to unmute you. Wait.
Sorry,
Yeah,
everyone. My network's a little shaky today. So I think we're getting a very steady stream on the chat. Should I read it
yeah,
out for you? Would that help?
yeah, yeah. We can just go with that then. Yeah,
It's gone again. Hello.
yeah. I'm here. Are you here?
Um.
Okay, don't worry. I'll read it out. I think.
Hi.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Um, okay. Satabdi had a question. I'm reading Satabdi's question. Doesn't time play a part here? Very true. Yeah. You spoke about sampling while doing a current co job, but doesn't time play a part here in a situation where your job drains every hour of your day? That's what we don't want to do. So, Satabdi, if you had a choice to do work that drains you versus work that doesn't drain you, would you take up that offer? And the entire idea of redesigning your career is actually so that you're spending as much, I would say I am aiming for 90% or 95% of my life and time doing things that actually enrich me, that work for me. But you could choose a ratio proportion that works for you. And if you currently feel that you have a job that's draining you and that's taking up 80% of your time, my invitation to you is that how you want to lead your life, or do you want to redesign your life? So redesigning your job is actually redesigning your life. Okay. Um, will this course be offered on a regular basis? Yes, Chitra, that's the plan as of now. Unless I redesign my own career in a very dramatic way, I would like to offer it on a regular basis. Okay. How many people will be in each group? Typically around four to five, okay, to make for meaningful discussions. Uh, the VIS strength survey. Yeah, so we are not going to be. What's its role in designing career? Absolutely, you can choose. You can choose to play and integrate as many of your strengths as you want into your career. And the VIA Strength Survey is one. This book has its own equivalent of discovering your strengths. There are other tools as well. You can use whatever it is, but a key part of redesigning your career is spending time introspecting on your own strengths, which is your values, your core values, your deep interests, what you like, your talents, what comes naturally to you, and sort of seeing how you can use all these things, right? So that you design a career that's uniquely suited, where you can play to your strengths. Okay. Uh, Okay, Shashwat says, we are always saying, I want to make my passion my career. Does passion have something to do with design its career? Lovely question. And also a very tricky one. It can if you want it to. Okay. Now here's the thing. And this is why am I saying if you want it to? You can choose to, okay, passion, okay, is a bit like fashion. Okay, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. So we have these buzzwords that sort of become really, really famous and popular and all of that, right? So passion is one such word. There's nothing per se wrong with it, but I'm going to use that same analogy of, you know, that Prince Charming or something like that. So if you assume that there's this one thing that's your passion, and you want to make that your life's work, go for it. We all know and we've heard of people who've done that, and it works for some people. For a whole bunch of other people, they may not just have one passion, they may have many passions, they might be interested in many things. Okay. And then they go into this, is this my passion or that my passion or this what. So for me, for example, I love writing poems, I love speaking and facilitating and conducting workshops like this. I love playing. I love yoga and meditation. And I've sort of made space for all of these in my life in different ways, right? And some of it which I call my career, some of which I don't, some which play a major role in my work, and some play a minor. So every now and then I get some of these things in, and that is the design thinking mindset. So you don't want to you don't have to, and there's nothing wrong if you can identify one thing. Let's say, I don't know, you like I don't know, let's say poetry, for example. If I liked only poetry and nothing else, right? And I said, this is my passion and I want to make it, I could think of doing that, but it may work or may not work. But I might have other things also that I want to bring into the design of my life and career. And that is really the approach that we'll be taking here. Okay. Uh, any examples of what people take away at the end of the session? Yes. So we do have some that I've put up as testimonials on the webpage. So I won't spend too much time on it. But yes, so there was one lady, for example, who had not worked for 8 years. So she had a gap and she was really stuck. And you could just see her completely change her mindset itself around, the whole feeling of being stuck, to really starting to doing the inner work and then doing the outer work. And by week 11 or 12, she actually had found a job that she loved. And I'm still checking in with her, and it's still going very well. Okay. um, there's another takeaway. There's another person, the one who said, that she didn't want to do a bakery and she did the prototypes. She continues to do what she was doing but she's feels very differently about what she's doing, because there are also aspects to this where we actually start, so the inner work really helps there. So if you've heard of the saying, happiness lies in liking what you do versus doing what you like, and if you've been splitting your head over this or that, it can be both. It's a combination of both, and that's something we explore here. So this part, so the inner work really started working for her, where she actually could start looking at the aspects of her existing job that were contributing to her and helping her, versus the ones that were draining her and the ones that she could pull away from. She needed to put boundaries in certain places, and the more she aligned that, she really started enjoying what she's already doing, which was not right. So that is the all, that kind of designing is also possible. Okay, so it can just be smaller tweaks, may not be big tweaks. There was another person who came into the course saying, I don't know if I am ready to take the plunge or not. I don't know if I. So the first 2 3 weeks, he was like, I don't know if I'm ready to take the plunge. And then, we worked with him and we sort of asked him about this. Okay, why do you think it has to be a plunge? What if you it wasn't a plunge, what and where do you want to take the plunge? He just wanted to quit the corporate world as a very generic thing, and he didn't know what the plunge was for. And the analogy I had used then with him was, if you've like seen this old movie called Bobby, where the hero and heroine, they just fall in love and they run off on this motorbike, and then they, I think they die or something, but still what happened was it became a fashion thing, right? So for a couple of years or 10 years after that, all the youngsters wanted to do that. They wanted to fall in love and just run away, like just take that plunge, right? And I told him, you're reminding me of that because you want to take a plunge, but where's that girlfriend? Where's like he just wants to take the plunge, but plunge where? Plunge for what? And he was like, okay. So he started really looking at what he wanted to do. And it doesn't always have to be a plunge. It can be like gradual or not as you want, based on your own risk appetite. I mean, my approach to redesigning my life and career, there's been no plunge. Like I just keep doing smaller tweaks, taking something off, adding something more, aligning here, doing this, doing that, spiraling, right? So it changed a lot of things for him. And then he started, saying, oh, on weekends I can do this and that. And he's still in that journey of, just, and he's very early in his career. So he hasn't left, but he's exploring all these little bits and aspects of himself. And he's, that bhoot, the jo charha hua tha ki you have to take a plunge, that's not there anymore. Okay, these are just examples of takeaways, but okay, I just gave you, I thought, three diverse examples. Uh, how much time? Thank you, Kamal, for asking this. Okay, so I'm not going to mince my words here, but the people who got the greatest takeaways from the course were the ones who are willing to spend time. So I'm sorry, that's how the world works. Okay. So here's the thing. And also because it's online, so the sessions that we'll have once a week are the basic minimum, yes. But there's work that you want to do beyond that. So every week, the book has exercises, and sometimes I suggest exercises. Sometimes I suggest specific exercises for specific people to get them unhooked or unlocked on some things, and some are generic, given to the whole group, right? So if you work on those exercises, that's where the integration happens, that's where the action happens. I mean, you drive this. So think of this, it's like a hybrid between a course and coaching, group coaching, right? So what happens in coaching? In coaching, you do the work and the coach is just giving you pointers and nudges and tweaks and all of that. So that's really my role. So I can't make anything happen if you're not doing it. Okay. So it's your life, your career, and I'm sure you want to design it. You don't want me to design it. So Kamal, back to your question. I would say about an hour to read the chapter, or less if you read fast. I mean, I keep rereading, by the way, so it's good stuff. So you'll enjoy reading. So an hour to read on an average, some are short, some are longer, and about an hour to work on the exercises, about an hour when you hour and a half when we have these sessions, and then you have your small group meetings also. So about an hour for that. So yeah, bucket a minimum of 4 hours to get the maximum out of this course. Okay. Uh, okay. Will this course be helpful to a person who wants a complete change in career after law? Absolutely. So Chitra, yes, absolutely. So you're the ideal audience for it, except I'm going to tweak one word in the last sentence. And I should have said this in the start, but there is no right career for you. So right career is like that right Prince Charming. Doesn't exist. So this course will empower you to create your career as your personal artwork, right? As your rangoli, as your design, as your expression, which you can add to and tweak and change and keep sculpting, keep crafting. So it's like when you're doing a painting. So think of career not as problem solving to get the right answer, but more like an artwork, right? You paint, check it out, stay with that painting for some time and say, more red here, stay with it, experience it, feel it, another couple of weeks or whatever. And then you say, no, fine, I want to scrape off something and change. And that is career crafting. So it will totally empower you on that journey. And no right. No right means no wrong also. And that's the beautiful part. Yeah, your design and art. Lovely course. Uh, Nilanjana, what if I want to do something but the ecosystem treats me very skeptically about this design? Yes, lovely. You're in the right place. I'll tell you why. Okay, and this is where inner work first, right? And this is why I said just outer work without inner work is useful, not that much. Take a look at your ecosystem. Take a look at your pond. Take a look at your family. Take a look at your friends. Take a look at everyone and everything that you've made important in your life. And take a look at yourself and take a look at your happiness. And start honestly looking at what would you trade off for what, and looking at if you would be willing to, you know, disregard some things in your ecosystem, if you would be willing to be judged a bit, if you would want to get creative actually about, sort of looking at the underlying, this this is actually, again, so in our IMB course, and Supriya would know this, we spend an entire this is about the stakeholders also, right? That's what I said, the stakeholders in the ecosystem. It's a complex subject, but I'm just going to sort of play around a bit with it here, which is, it goes in many ways, but some of the work that we'll be doing here, and I will be really helping you because this is something I'm very passionate about, is find yourself, find your voice, touch base with your inner core and make those choices, some of which might seem like tough choices, but again, there's no guarantee, but there is a lot of experience, and I've made some of these tough choices where you see that in the long run you don't regret it. You actually see that the people who truly care about you in the ecosystem come around and they're with you no matter what choices you make. So yeah, this is, I'm sorry, I can't in a short call like this, I can't go very deep. So maybe what I'm saying might also be sounding a bit flaky and too good to be true kind of, but believe me, we can get you there. It's really a journey of consciousness, of self empowerment, of very honestly looking at where how much you are counting yourself in the equation of your life, and how much do you want to, and and taking it from there. Okay. um, Deepa has a question. Ramya, do people who successfully transition also need some ongoing support to keep up their momentum motivation levels, especially when doing something new? I would guess there might be some ups and downs. How do coaches manage the teething troubles? Beautiful question, Deepa. And lovely question. In fact, I mean, and ups and downs obviously happen at all levels, but at new transition, it's just like, yeah, if you're growing a tree, right? When the tree is really young, you need the fencing so it doesn't, and you need extra care before it groups in. Uh, Sometimes you can create support groups, and this is where you could create a mini support group based on people who've done the program with you. But you can also create a support group by choosing people from outside of people who took this journey with you who will support you. So, for example, in the book, the last or second last chapter is called Building a Team. Yeah, chapter 11, Building a Team. And that's what it's all about. It's building that team that will be with you. So, and it doesn't mean that this is that they're not working on in your company, right? But they are here. They're like the team who's going to support you, your personal cheerleaders, your personal support group. And it's definitely something that we can all build and create. And it's part of the redesign process, actually. Not necessary part, but highly suggested part. Okay. Uh, Shah, and I'm just reading out the questions so people on the recording know what it is. Ma'am, so this course would help someone who doesn't want to go into the corporate world and go into certain field like freelancing, acting, or something like that, where there are many ups and downs. In short run, money is less for survival. So Shashwat, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. There are a lot of conclusions here, which may or may not be true. And if you join this course, you will be invited to explore all these conclusions and assumptions. I'm not saying they're not true, but before you decide that money is less for survival, or that the ups and downs are only in freelancing and not in the corporate world, right? So, and here's the thing: we start our design process with a bunch of assumptions that we bought into as true. So some inner work will be done before you start designing, and post that inner work, if you still continue to hold these assumptions, you can, and you can design from there. But I will definitely be pushing and nudging you a bit to question some of these upfront. Okay. uh, so Chitra says 4 hours per week is the minimum requirement of the courses. Yes. No, that's actually the optimal requirement. So there are people who did it with less. And let me put it this way also. There are lots of exercises, as every week there's an exercise. Now every exercise is not fundamental or to everyone, right? So it's like we take you through a bunch of things, but usually for each person there's one exercise that really contributes to you, that really gives you your personal aha. So again, 4 hours is suggested. It's great. So if you want to be the good student, diligent student, do everything, you do 4 hours. Uh, Although you can also be a little prudent about it. And if you're the kind of person who can sort of skip a chapter and say, okay, fine, this one I want to deep dive and do more around. And this one, I'm already sorted around this because I've already been doing some of this. So you can also take it like that. Okay. So that's the way I would put it. Uh, Sessions are every Friday, not for 1 hour, for 1.5 hours, because again, it's because I actually help people personally. So literally, like um, yeah, I don't. If it finishes in 1 hour, we can call, but it never usually happens. So it's really, if anyone is stuck anywhere in their journey, this is where we resolve it. So we want to keep enough time for that. Okay. Typically, in your experience, how much time does it take for transition to take place? For the individual to identify his next area of career transition change and moving in that direction and stabilizing. There isn't an average. There isn't an average. So, like somebody was saying, I don't know whether to take a plunge. There are some people who take a plunge and stabilize. This is like it's like your personal nature. Do what works for you. And this is something that we will also be talking about, that you take your transition and you take your change in a way that feels authentic, and I'm going to use the word easy. Not very easy, like it's going to be you're outside your comfort zone, but it doesn't feel like a huge strain for you. It goes with your natural pace of where you want to take it. So which means it's not always right or better to transition fast. It's not always right or better to transition slow. You need to go at a pace that works for you. Why? Because the transition is not the end. reward that we're looking at. We want you to enjoy that whole process, because after the transition, you might continue to transition also. So we really want you to enjoy the journey. So yeah, so the yeah, I think I would have answered that. Okay. So Aaron says, are there means to get validation as we go through the process, inner work, outer work? Yeah. You have validation. You can ask me, but all the validation will come from insights. The validation comes in the form of your breakthroughs, your insights. You're feeling aha. You're feeling, oh my God, like a big block has gone away. So you will get all the validation you want from your own insights and experiences. Okay. Uh, Interest and skills often help choose the career path, but often after many years in your career, you feel you want to do, beautiful. Okay. Absolutely. The course will help to break or reshape. Yes, the course will help you break lots of things, including molds, assumptions, images and identifications that you've wedded yourself of, that I can only be this and I can only do this and I am this, I am a professor or I am a writer. And, you've put yourself into that box and you're holding that so tightly that now you don't know who else you are. You're always something beyond of all those labels and boxes, right? Whatever you've done. Absolutely, it will. And in fact, you know, this thing, this is not evident in the question, but I do want to mention it, which is many times you might be on a path, you might have chosen something in an area where you're really interested and you really have skills. And, therefore it's like that, right? If you're looking at the right fit, also, it feels like that. And then after 5 years or 10 years or whatever, you're like, this is not fun anymore. This is not exciting anymore. And I've just got bored of it. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that also. And when that happens, and I've seen lots of people for whom that happened, and that's happened for me also at times, uh, there are a couple of key things that you can ask. It's very easy to get unstuck from there. And I'll give you those couple of things you need to check. One is your level of skill versus challenge, okay? If it's become boring for you, if you become so good at it that it's now happening like autopilot, it's not challenging you anymore. What you do then, you can stay in the same line of work, but increase the level of challenge or increase the level of complexity. And back, you're excited and you're into it again, right? And that's actually comes from the science of flow. So that's something that you might want to look at. The other thing that sometimes happens is, remember I told you we're all these multifaceted, multidimensional people. So in catering to some of your skills and interests and you're doing, there are other aspects of you that you've really suppressed and suffocated. And those parts are now like, like a child tugging at you. Why not rediscover these parts and bring them in, or spend some time here? Okay. So it's very possible. And the redesign process is a great time to actually stop, take base, and see in which direction you want to go again. Okay. I think, oh, we have one more question. Has there been any case someone who even after doing this course could not nail or yes. No. There are. So, and this is where, I did mention that you get out of the course what you put into it. And I'm also playing with this design. So one of my personal dissatisfactions with the course is, unlike, even in a face-to-face course, you can't of course enforce anything, but you have longer workshops where you sort of make sure that everyone who's present does all the activities and does everything, right? So there have been people who've taken the course and then they've not had the time to actually engage with the activities and show up for the classes. They've done more recordings and they haven't had, their takeaways haven't been too great. They have been sort of telling, but the process continues. So one such person is actually still in touch with me and he's rereading all the books. And of course, even if it works for you, you can reread the book and go through the recordings and take it at your own pace. But yeah, just to let you know, it's not like a guaranteed that will work. So I mean, it will work if you do the work, because the process is sort of really well thought of. And I'm not taking credit for that, okay? I'm giving the authors of the book and the exercises the credit for that, and I'm really facilitating that. So, Supriya, does it require to be at a certain point on Maslow's? Um, so I guess Maslow's hierarchy is not a like proof theory, but to your question, I feel, yeah, is this course for everyone? No, it's not. And frankly, I think if you've been attracted to it, if the topic calls out for you, if you are thinking about it, then it's possibly right to you. So if you're someone who's sort of just like, going with the analogy of Maslow's, just trying to make, in the bottom rung, just trying to make your roji roti kamai and just getting that, and you're not even, then you won't even be attracted to a course like this, right? You'll just be attracted to, okay, next job opening or something like that. So yes, I think you have a valid point there. So the filter here is just like, if you're attracted to this course, then you're definitely looking for, engaging with your work in a way that's meaningful, contributive, enjoyable, and financially contributive as well to you. Okay, good. So I think we're good. Um, there's one more. Okay, Chitra, who should go for this group course and who should go for one-on-one coaching with you? Okay, so yeah, in terms of the pros and cons, um, I'll give you the pros and cons and let everyone decide. So one-on-one coaching, of course, one, it's more expensive. But apart from that, one-on-one coach, I mean, I really, apply, everything is customized to you, right? So you get more hand-holding, more customization, more nudging, pushing. Uh, in the group course, however, you get, and this is something that a lot of participants from the first batch actually told me. They liked this feeling, like, many, like I told you many times, when we don't fit into a certain path, or we've had a break, or we've had failures, or we've been laid off, and when I say we start thinking there's something wrong with us, and all these worries only mine. When you're in a group and everyone's sharing, and it's really, it's sort of very comforting in a way. It's very humbling in a way to also realize that actually our lives and our journeys and our ups and downs, and even the fact that we are so unique and we feel that nobody understands us, is not unique to us because there are others who feel the same way. And that beautiful space that gets created in a one-on-one is just me, so you don't experience that. So in my head, that was a beautiful contribution of the group discussions. And the other beautiful contribution of the group discussions was, of course, the small group work and the networking, because there were a couple of people who actually, almost a lot of people in the group actually helped one another with making the connections for the prototype interviews. And there was, so the networking was very valuable. So there are, advantages to the group also, doing it in a group, which are not planned in the design, but they really occur. So it works. How would we grade it? Any certification at the end? Thank you, Deven, for asking. So, in the first batch, there wasn't, but I have decided actually to do a certification. And I'll tell you why. This is precisely because I was not feeling very happy about, some of the people who signed up in the first batch, but really could not engage and did not complete the activities and all of that. And so, because, it's like, I'm not saying what is a reputation, but it's like my conscience is also on the line here. I want you to get something out of the course, and and in order to get in, you have to put in the work. So I actually attended a training program as a student. I over the last 5 days. It ended this Wednesday, and in order to get the certification, we have to, we kept getting reminders. If you don't submit your assignments, you don't get it. And I'm a fairly diligent student, and I paid a lot for this training and I was committed to it. But I'll tell you, still, there's COVID, there's my son, there's this business, there's my dog, there's so many things going on that it really helped me get those reminders. And the fact that if I didn't submit it, I won't get the certificate, and I made it do it. So, school, like, even though it might sound, I am going to give a certification, and that would involve asking you to submit the assignments. And if you just want it for the learning, and of course you can take your call. And what is the as value of the certification, I'm also looking at sort of offering, because I do a bunch of other coaching and programs as well, so people who've completed something with me would get, you know, I don't know, discounts or free seats or, you know, something special in other programs that I offer. So, you know, so that's the advantage. And you'll get that only if you have the certificate, which means you've completed. So I'm just trying to sort of, you know, put in a system that sort of compels for a good cause us to do the work. Okay. Ankit asks, in which cases would you recommend one-on-one coaching over this? Hmm. Um, I guess Ankit, uh, if you want you want more closer hand holding, right? If you want someone to almost like walk that journey with you, be there, and okay, one more. If you want to sort of take it in your own direction, because in this, like I told you, you know, so for example, when you come to chapter 9, you'll wonder, why is this chapter 9? This could have been in chapter 2, because it's a linear format, but it's a non-linear journey. So, you know, similar topics in the way I was teaching at IIM Bangalore, I had, you know, topics in different sequences. So there is, so, you know, in week 1 or 2, people might ask certain questions, and I'll say, no, wait, we're going to address this in week 10 or 11, right? Because we're going through it. But if you want all that flexibility, which means really like you create the directions, the angle, the pace, all of that, if you want to drive it, then one-on-one coaching will give you the ability to do all of that. So you can really, so in one-on-one coaching, you decide everything, literally, and I'm there to support you. Yeah. Awesome strategy. Okay. Thank you, Chitra. What are the other courses that you're offering now? Not much actually. So I had a bunch of 5 courses that I started with. I'm just finishing choosing happiness, and I won't be offering that again actually, because I've decided to create a niche for myself in careers and work and meaning. Like I told you, like my little life purpose, because I enjoy this the most. So I had courses on perfectionism and happy money EQ and all, but all of them are the prototypes were good, but for me it was just, you know, doing too many different things. So this is the one that I'll be doing going forward. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So we'll call it a night, and maybe I'll see some of you in the longer journey. If not, you can still stay tuned, and you can sign up for the newsletter and sort of, you know, be in touch, and we'll see how our paths cross. Okay, I see another quick question. I'll just take it. A lot of people take their job to be their life and don't think of life. Yeah. Totally. Absolutely. You'll be looking at your life design and your work in the context of, in fact, you do an exercise called work view and life view right at right at the start. So you look at your work as part of your larger life. Okay. And thank you so much for all your thank yous, and my joy and pleasure. This is what I enjoy. So thank you for being here present with me today. Bye bye. And thank you, Akanksha. And so those of you who want to join, just drop in a mail, and you can write to contact@craftingourlives.com, and we'll take it from there. Okay, Akanksha, I'll give you further details. Bye bye. Thank you, Chitra.